Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your girl Mitzi, and this is Mitzi. Let's think about it. Today, we are thinking about neurodivergence versus society. Dun dun dun. This is a thinker, ladies and gentlemen, and luckily here I have Steven, who's going to be helping us think about this in another way. So, Steven, thank you so much for coming on my show. It's such a pleasure to have you. Let's just go ahead and dive right in. When you hear the word neurodivergent, what does that first make you think about?
Well, it's an umbrella term that covers a lot of conditions. It's not actually, I guess it's called condition, but it refers to a person whose brain processes information in a different way that's not typical to everyone else, which is
Okay.
basically, it's bad because it's basically you're defining it as a negative. It's like neurodivergent means like you are different. Your brain
Yeah.
is different, basically. And that covers a lot of things like autism, ADHD, which I have. I actually had ADD. I got it before they added the H, so I'm just officially ADD. I also have some numeric dyslexias in there, so and then a couple of developmental things like communication developmental problems and like aspects of developmental problems. So there's a lot of things that they've just kind of thrown under this one umbrella, but the umbrella term has actually become very popular and very like it's the awareness of it has become way more in the last I'd say like 10 years, 10 or 5 or 10 years.
Yeah,
But yeah,
I could
back
see
when I was
that.
diagnosed in the 80s, yeah, it was just, ADD and it was just like
Yeah. No
Ritalin. That was
problem.
the only, yeah.
Right. No problem. Your kid's just really hyper. Calm down. Here's some
Yeah,
Ritalin. Have a good day. Bye-bye. You know what I mean?
right. And that's
That's
exactly what society does. Is
exactly.
society doesn't like anything that's complex or chaotic. They want everything kind of rigid. That way they can control you because
Isn't
society
that
is about control.
isn't that kind of crazy to think about though? Society's all about controlling, labeling, defining, putting you in this box so that they can just comprehend you and process you. But in
That's
all
quickly
that,
and as quickly and easy as possible.
yeah, exactly, quickly and easy puzzle, but in reality, that's not realistic.
No,
No one on this earth is cookie clutter simple, like no rigid edges, no issues. Like everyone's bound to have some type of trauma that develops some type of other issues that has a chemical imbalance, that has a neurological issue. And since life is very subjective, you cannot say that something is okay when I don't receive it as okay and somebody else doesn't receive it okay, but because you're forcing me to say it's okay, it's okay. Not
right.
okay. And I think that is the beautiful thing that now in the last 5, 10 years, this uh, neurodivergent. I can't say the other word. I don't know why it's not coming out. But neurodivergent. I'm so glad it's coming out because it's just showing that the next generation is trying to embrace mental health. You know what I mean? And if this is
Yes.
the umbrella that you're gonna put all of these other disorders in, then all right, let's embrace it because let's be honest, not a lot of, I mean, you can, but it's very rare to find one person just with ADHD and not the others. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very rare because I have dyslexia and it's oh my goodness. The people will be making fun of me when I try to read out loud. I think that's the reason why I won't do I won't read out loud because I know I'm bound to make a mistake. And I and I
Right.
mem
Right.
and I memorize things differently than other people because of my dyslexia. Like I have with numbers, they blur up on me. You know what I'm saying? So for me to remember numbers, especially if they're in sequence, I have to say
Oh,
1, 2, 3 for them to be in sequence. And they're like, no, that's 0, 0, 0. And I'm like, I know, but in my mind, it's 1, 2, 3 because there's three zeros. So I have to make sure that there's three coming out because if not, I'm going to put like 4 or 5. And all I see is zero. So it's there. So I have to separate it. Oh my goodness, it drives me crazy.
I have the same thing. I have numerical dyslexia. And
Okay.
the same way because numbers are abstractions. They don't actually, there's no story or connected to them. You just have to memorize, like memorizing the multiplication table.
Yeah.
That's like, it's just, it never came with me. So I remember having to figure out how to remember what the numbers were by using the shapes. So a four is four dots in my head. One, two, three, four, the top and the bottom. So that, and a five has five. One, two, three, four, five. That's how I had to learn the numbers as a kid
That's
because
funny.
it couldn't represent it. Like that's the kind of complex things that we have to do ourselves because
Yes.
no one else knows that what we're going through. And that's where the
No.
Yeah, neurodivergents have to develop their own set of like understanding tools and weapons to like get through the information that every easy person, like every normal neurotypical person, is having a fine time with. But they don't
Oh
realize we
my
have to have like five more
goodness.
things. Yeah,
Thank you for saying that. Everybody was thought I was like ridiculous because for me to do multiplications, I use the squares in my fingers.
right?
So I will count accordingly to the squares, and that's how I know. So for me, it's by threes, and then I go up accordingly. And for I don't know why it works for me. And I did it one time in front of somebody, and they're like, Mitzi, you're 24 years old. Why are you doing that? And that was back then. Obviously, I'm not 24 now. But you know what I'm saying? Like the people still make fun of me from this day, and it's so
Right?
sad because it's like, why? I'm doing it right. Where I'm still doing it with you. Just because I'm doing it differently doesn't mean I'm not doing it.
One of the things that society wants is an ability to control you. And one of the biggest controlling factors in society is shame. Shame
Yes.
is used all the time to, put, cram that wrong shaped block into a wrong shaped hole. It's like, this is what you should be instead of thinking what you are. And that's one of the issues is society doesn't, it mows the grass at the same level for everybody. And it will
Yeah.
cut the heads off of so many brilliant things just in sake of keeping everything else at the same level. And
Absolutely.
we get mowed down until
Absolutely.
until we discover our ways that we can actually succeed using the tools we have instead of the tools we were given.
Exactly. And I like that. I think you said it perfectly to use the tools that we have instead of using the tools that we're given because too many people feel the need of forcing themselves to conform to this shape,
Yes.
that mold. Oh my God, I love that depiction. Goodness, I can't speak today. I love it because it made me think of like an octagon and you're trying to stick an oval in it. And then when you do, all you're going to do is just scrape the sides and force it in there, taking away all of what it is. And then it's
Yeah.
no
All the
longer an
uniqueness.
oval. Yeah, it's no longer an oval. What is it now? A circle? No, it's a messy, it's crappy, it's no longer what it was. So it's just like, why would you force it? You can see a child playing with those toys, and you can see the frustration of them putting in it, and that's society. Society
Mhm.
gets so frustrated, so they're like, okay, well, if this is going on with you, well, then let's just label it a mental illness, a
Yes.
mental problem, diagnose you with some category that we can diagnose you as, give you some medicine to numb you so that you can conform to our lives and so you can be accepted by society because this is how society is. And if you
Yes.
want to be accepted and loved, please take all of these pills that has thousands of side effects and death is always included.
And that you just,
Mm-mm-mm.
the way you acted that out is perfect because society thinks it's helping. It thinks it's helping by like,
Isn't that
oh
sad?
yes, let's just give you all these drugs so you can act just like us, and that's what we want is you to be us. Because everyone wants to see themselves out in the world, and when they see something that's not them, they get really scared or they get really confused and they don't know what to deal with it. And so that's why, like, the higher ups, we need more neurodivergent people in the higher up positions in society who
Yeah.
have understanding or at least some ability to have empathy for it. Because that's the trick is no, you can't explain how confusing it is in your own head to someone else. And they just don't get it.
They
You can't explain that.
don't.
When I look at this number, I don't remember. I can remember two phone numbers, only two, mine and my
You're
wife's.
lucky.
That's it.
Yeah, you
That's
lucky if
it.
you get anything more, right?
Yeah. But other people can rattle off these numbers and all these other things, and they're like, "Why can't you do this?" And that's the question. That's a great question for them. It's a question that should stay in their head. They shouldn't ask you, "Why can't they do this?" They should be like, "Huh, I wonder what difficulties, like, I wonder why they can't." And
Yeah,
then kind of
exactly.
process it from themselves because that's what we have to do all the time to figure out what social cues we're missing.
You know what I realized also is that mental obstacles that we deal with like neurodivergence, they have this expectation of just like being like everybody else, you know what I mean? Because like physical disabilities, you can tell, okay, he has one leg. Of course, I'm not going to force him to climb up a ladder and go up a
Right.
tree. Why would I do that? So what horrible human being would have that person go up that have him go up that ladder with no assistance, no nothing mechanical to assist that individual. Yet we do it all the time in the school system. And I
Yep.
feel like that's the hardest part is with these children that we're telling they're being told that they're ignorant. They're being told that they will never amount to anything in this world because
Right.
they don't conform to society's basic tasks. Those tests are rigged and those tests are ridiculous. You can't tell me
Yeah.
I'm not smart because I have anxiety and I'm sweating and I don't know how to put the information on the paper or I don't understand the words that you put in there. Like wording is so difficult for me because the words are so vague in my mind.
Yes.
You know what I mean? They have so many multiple definitions where words on tests well irks my soul because it's like one word can mean so many things, so many options.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Depending
Like,
upon,
go ahead.
depending upon the tone that you present to a word, you can completely change its meaning. And this is
Yes.
why you have I have so many issues with texting because I can't read people's tone. If I can't read your tone, my natural assumption is I'm going to assume you read it in the most destructive, worst tone and that I did something wrong because but I misread it because people expect you to understand all the time. And that's a rough,
Assume.
that is such a rough expectation to assume
Yes.
that people understand all the time.
And they assume all the time, assuming, and then they call it common sense
Yes.
when it's like,
Oh,
how could you not know this? I'm like, because common sense isn't common because not everything that's common is received the same way because there's
right.
subjectiveness. So you have to add on critical thinking. You know what I mean? When you
Yes.
have great critical thinking skills, then you're able to elaborate the scenario and whole situation and be like, you know what? That person is not receiving the information the way that I'm saying it, but they are understanding the concept, and that's
Yes.
all that matters. I've had so many issues with teachers because they were like, Mitzi's not getting Mitzi's not understanding the material. And then my mom will come in and be like, okay, well, what's the problem? Like, she got the answer, but it's not the way that I showed her to get the answer, and that's the problem. I'm like, that's the answer,
Ex
right? Like, no, but you
yes.
cheated because how else did you find this answer if you didn't learn it the way that I learned? I'm like, but isn't there a way to learn without learning the way that you learn? You know what I mean? You can learn things a different
Yeah.
way.
We
Thank
have
you.
to, we've had to learn without being taught. And
Yes.
there's so much of that that I think, and it's
There's
just
like
so,
it's like a lot of self-teaching. Like you are
yes.
self-teaching and self-talking. There's a lot of self-talk inside of you. So it's like how you talk to yourself is very important for neurodivergence. And I think that's the reason why there's such big extremities like neurodivergence with these conditions under it. You can be very successful, very, oh my goodness, do so much great things in the world and nobody would know because you didn't expose the truth of what it is. You
Right.
know what I mean? Or it could be really bad, and people were like, "Oh, you're homeless. Oh, you're a drug addict. Oh, you went to jail.
Right.
Oh, I guess you just can't handle society." Like, no, no, society can't handle me. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Society cannot
That,
handle the people that are in it.
that's the real thing is society cannot handle the extremes and they try and push us out to the edges. And
Yes.
instead, I think here I have a weird theory
Tell me.
that I believe that neurodivergence is actually a next evolution of humanity. That,
Ooh.
yeah, because if you think about it, autism is you have developed a natural defense for bullshit.
Yeah.
Like you don't like when people lie to your face, they're like, no, I just took them for what they said. Like, like that's it's a defense mechanism that humans are developing because we're becoming so good at tricking each other that
Mm.
we need people who are untrickable.
You know what's funny that you said that? How it's evolving. I heard somebody say to me that because they believe in reincarnation, that we just took our past knowledge with us. So now we are more sensitive and in tune to our environment
I like
that
that.
as we grow in our and we evolve in this now that we are in, we know how to separate the bullshit. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's an interesting concept too. So it kind of goes align both theories because if you think about it, we are special.
Yes. Yeah. That's what they're saying. Like the word neurodivergent means like divergent. You are different. You are
Exactly.
unique. than other people. And for whatever reason, it's happening a lot now. And I feel like people are looking at trying to find the cure instead of looking for the way they can help it and make it move forward us like make us all move forward as society.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I don't know if you've seen the movie Shazam 2 or Shazam 1.
Yes.
Have you seen the Shazams?
Yeah.
Okay, so you know how the doctor he had an experience and he's trying to get back to that experience, so he contacted all these other people to who had that experience, who said they had that experience, and they he interviewed them and everything like that. Like, what if? You know what I mean? What if there was a scenario like that with neurodivergence to find the real like plan? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The real situation because there's a lot of us, but there's also not a lot of us as well because I
Right.
when you speak to people, you get to really understand like people process things very differently than you the more you start opening your mouth
Yeah.
and speaking your mind because they give you this look of like confusion. Like, how did you come up with this concept? Like, how did you get here
Yeah.
when it wasn't that's not possible. It's like we make the impossible possible. Wow.
Yeah. We make what other people believe is impossible happen because
Mm,
they're taught impossibilities. They're taught no's. Like you're taught, don't
yeah.
do this, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that. And then we're the ones going, well, we just did it without thinking about it. So what does that mean?
I know,
It
right? That's so true. So when did you realize this for yourself? When did you realize like, you know what? I'm a little different from the rest.
I've had it since I was a kid. I
Since you
have
were a
I
kid, you
have
realized it.
I had huge thick glasses. I couldn't sit still. They actually gave me double gym in kindergarten because like I half of the things I was actually smarter than the kids and the other half I was way below. Like my math skills were terrible, but my understanding ability were great. So I was taking tests like the California Achievement Test. I took 2 grades above me,
Oh
and
wow.
then except for the math portion, which I took a grade below me.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
That's
because
interesting.
my it but I was in and out of resource rooms my entire education. I barely
Wow.
graduated high school because I knew that so much of the information wasn't important. And
Yeah.
but then I got to college. I went to film school, and it was everything I was interested in. So I did great. I graduated with 3.2, and like I had a great time. And because I was interested in the information, and I was
Yeah.
finally like inspired,
Engaged and you can
engaged.
put it
Yeah.
into like because the way we process things that we've related in a way that it makes sense to us, you know what I
Yes.
mean? Because the way that we see life, okay, we see how it operates, we see the intentions, we see the purpose, we see the outcome. So it's like we lay all of that out before we jump to things. Like I've noticed that neurodivergent individuals are not very impulsive, and if they are impulsive, they're extreme impulsiveness, you know
Yes.
what I mean? But if the neurodivergence, they have like this balance within them because they are trying to process things in a certain way. So when you said earlier things take a little bit more time to process things, it's because we're going through our checklist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're trying to determine what, okay, so where is this gonna fit? Ooh, okay, it's in the numbers category. So now I'm in the numbers category. How do I separate that? And then we go through that section. And it's like same with like people. How do we separate that? Okay, we separate by things that are that stands out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Things that I can remember. Like I'm great with remembering faces, terrible with names. Like I have
Right.
to like see you on a constant basis and give you a nickname for me to actually remember you. Because if not, I won't remember you. You know what I
Right.
mean? Or I won't remember your name. Like our I don't know, it just won't work. Like for me, my friends growing up, I always had to give somebody a nickname for me to
Right.
remember. There was this movie, I think I don't know what it's called, but it was about this girl leaving the Playboy's mansion because she got kicked out, and so she went to a sorority house and was the mother there.
House
And
bunny.
yes, house bunny. So when every time she said a name, she would say so Cynthia. It was that scene. It was like every time she said a name, she had to say it deep, and I was just like, I understand that process.
Yeah.
And somebody was with me, was like, why would she do that? I'm like, because she's retaining it in her mind so she can understand. Like that makes sense to me. But
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
there's so many little tricks and tips we've discovered to function in real life. I have a
Mm.
friend who has children now, and he has a daughter and a son, and the son is neurotypical. The daughter is neurodivergent, and just like he is, and he is now teaching her the things he used to get through
Right.
because he knows that she's going to have issues. And so he's already teaching her the mental tricks he has as an adult
Mm,
to help her. And that's, I mean, first of all, that's really beautiful and sweet. But secondly, you shouldn't have to do that. You shouldn't have to, like, he's teaching her to kind of like, okay, honey, like you got to pretend to be in the box that they're putting you
pretty
in.
much, pretty much. But
And that's,
that's kind of what society wants. It's like we want you to be in a box when you're out in public, and when you're in
yeah,
your home, go ahead to get yourself out of the box, explore, do whatever you want in your home. Paint the walls blue or have a furry if you want. We don't care, but on the outside, please leave it cookie cutter. Stepford. I mean, how many movies have they showed showing that that doesn't work? Stepford Wives. They even made a new movie just a couple last like a year or two ago about the same concept, how people want to form a community so structured, so rigorous, so predictable that
yeah.
there's literally no threat to anybody. Why would you want to live in a world like that? Like that's no fun.
Well, it's usually one or two or a few people on top of that
Yeah,
society who
exactly.
are in who are basically it's the attempting to play God. It's like making a
Yeah,
world in their image and
exactly.
their neurotypicality. Because
Exactly.
yeah, people don't like
Well,
people that don't think like them,
I
or
know.
you do.
Even the Legos movie. My sons are into the Legos movie, and I know this. I always bring up movies. I'm sorry. This is just how I process world.
No,
But
I learned through narrative. I know movies. Movies are how we communicate. We like that's I call it meme speak. Is we are now in a society where we talk to each other in references. We
yes,
send like pictures from shows and say, "Hey, this is a joke," and you have to
yeah,
understand it. Like that's how much our society is about, like communication with through entertainment.
yeah. That's true. That's true. Because even in that movie, it even it said how he didn't like the unpredictability and the chaos that came with it. But it's just like that's what life is. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And some people don't like that about life because it's so unpredictable and it hurts their feelings and they're offended. But it's like if you just take off that defense that you always have
right.
and that quick to offense, you realize it's not that bad. Like the world is
Being
harsh, but it's not that bad.
being offended is a choice, by the way. Being
Sure
injured is
is.
not. Like you can injure someone, but if you're offended, you're choosing to be offended. You're
Mm-hmm.
reacting to something that you've been told to react to in a certain way.
Yes. Exactly. Oh, and then your mind just processes it like, oh, it's supposed to act like this. Let me do this. Psh. So
Yeah,
that
she
would be like
shouldn't.
an
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that. Why? Because someone told me once, so now I'm offended by them doing that in front of me. It's like, oh,
yeah.
that's a great conditioning. There you go.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's a great way to live your life. Please go ahead and go on your merry way. Like, no, that is the way that society wants people to live. And I think when more people of the divergentness is it's the way that you say it, more people who are divergent, they should embrace themselves and try to really
Yeah, push it out to
like
the edges.
enhance it. Yeah, exactly. Push it to the edge. See how far you can really go. You know what's crazy? Because you know how I have those issues with the numbers and I do it this way. I'm actually going into school for accounting. And you would never think that, like, why would you do that in with your issue? But it's like I like patterns. I like to catch the patterns, and you can find it with numbers.
Right,
You know what I
because
mean?
that's how you learned numbers. You created your own patterns. So now you've
Exactly.
become accustomed to them, and like that excites you because you've created order out of the chaos that was in your mind, and you
Hmm.
now enjoy it.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. Look at that. That's interesting. Well, I'm so glad I had this conversation with you because
This was
I
so
knew
wonderful.
I knew about the neurodivergent, but I never actually understood it to the point like it was just like there. You know what I mean? Like it's a word, it's
Yeah,
there, it has value, but I never understood the value of it. And I think that's the beauty of having these conversations on my show is because we bring more of an understanding, realizing like, you know what, we're actually more alike than what you think. And I know probably my audience is like, Mitzi, you were probably everything on every episode, but it's like,
well,
you know what I mean?
that's why you pick guests because there's something about what they want to tell you that somehow connects with you and you want to hear more. So,
Yeah. And more people do. People want to know about these things because it's the real things that they're really afraid of to talk to other people with. But it's like, it's actually really fun. I love speaking about this with other people. And it's sad because time is escaping us. And I feel like we could talk deeper and deeper and deeper in this rabbit hole of oh, my neurodivergent. Mitzi, I
Divergent.
will get it. I will get it one day. What could be some lasting words of wisdom that you can leave us off with to keep on thinking?
Oh, try not to allow shame to be such a big factor in your life, especially for neurodivergent people. I think shame is the way that society controls us a lot, and it's a self-inflicted weapon.
Mm,
You have to use it on yourself. Um, but don't use it like don't allow them to control you by telling you how you should feel.
exactly. There's like a discipline factor. You know what I mean? You can use it
Yeah.
as a discipline, but don't use it as a control. Don't use it as a whip to tell you how you need to actually live your life. Because I think that's we teach ourselves how to perform. You know what I mean? And I feel like
Yes.
actors and actresses are the best neurodivergents out there because they're allowed to just step into that unknown reality that they can play. And oh my goodness, there's so many great actors and actresses out there that plays roles that are like you're like that person, and and it's like we have to be careful because we can lose ourselves. You know what I mean? We can lose ourselves in that
Yes.
role. And I think that's why it's a great point, embrace all that you are. Don't allow society to control you with shame because shame is the easiest thing. Blame is the easiest thing. And today with the cancel culture so strong, it's quick to have shame. So it's
Yeah.
like to have that reminder. That's a great one. That's a great one. Thank you. And if
Oh,
anybody wants to know more about Steven, and all that he has to offer to the world, please check him out. I have his photo on my website. Just click on his website right there, and you have all the access to you can keep on thinking. So, with that being said, bye.